Okay, so snacking, something that the majority of us struggle with more often than we'd probably like to admit. So how can we sort of reduce this? And I think a great way to sum this up is a quote that I saw recently, which is that it's easier to change your environment to work for you than it is to rely on willpower. Okay, truth is, things like willpower and motivation, they suck. That's a video for another time. But if you're constantly trying to boost or rely on your willpower and your motivation, you are facing one hell of an uphill battle. Because most of the time, you're not going to have much willpower and you're not going to be very motivated. But as I said, different video for a different time. Now, if you've been following me for a while, you know that I love talking about psychology. And if you don't know that, you will know that soon. Because I think it's massively downplayed and doesn't get as much attention as things like, what to eat, how much to eat, exercise, etc. And obviously those things are important. However, you can know all of that and have that all in place, but if you can't get yourself to do it consistently, it's not going to work. Okay, and this is where psychology comes in, because I think it's so important and just not given as much attention. Okay, and this plays into this. Okay, so it's amazing sort of how such simple tricks can sort of like almost alter your eating habits in terms of your behaviours in your environment, okay? Now, one of them, which I'm going to give you tonight, is obviously about snacking. So, and that is to put all of your snacks in one place, okay? Now, the idea behind this is it reduces your exposure to the snacks, okay? So, basically, every time you see a snack, or anytime you see a food, you have to make a decision on whether or not you're going to eat it. Now, the less you see it, the less you have to make that decision, and the less often you are likely to say, yes, I want it. Okay? Simple. It sounds very simple, right? Now, if you have your snacks in 4 or 5 places, you're coming across them more often. You're asking yourself more often whether you want them or not, and you are more likely to say yes more often. Okay, again, so simple, but it makes a huge difference. Now, it's almost a difference between making that conscious decision and not, because I think a lot of the time we think we're in control of what we're eating, and we think it's a conscious decision that we're making to eat, but a lot of the time it isn't. It's unconscious and it's a habit. Now, sort of what this helps with is you make that conscious decision to go and get the food and get the snack, rather than stumbling across it, looking for something else, and then making a decision on whether or not you want it, okay? Now, what you want to do with this is put them all in one place and make them as inaccessible as possible. So it can be as simple as putting them in a really high cupboard, put them in a really low cupboard, put them all the way at the back so it's hard to get to, or you can't see it as much when you go into that cupboard. Even things like just small barriers like this can make, honestly, a huge difference. Things like twisting off a lid, peeling an orange, de-shelling nuts, having to walk into the kitchen to get seconds rather than having the whole tub in front of you. It just gives you time to think. And there's so many studies that have shown this. I've talked about one before where basically a 6 feet difference made people snack half as much. 6 feet. That is it. And when they asked them why that made a difference, because let's be honest, 6 feet, to get up and walk 6 feet isn't a lot of effort. And basically, they ate less than half than when the snacks were right in front of them. And they said, why? Why did you do that? It's not hard, to walk 6 feet. And they basically said, well, it gave me time to think. It gave me a moment to pause and ask myself, am I really hungry? And do I really want to eat it? And most of the time they said no. Whereas when it was right in front of them, they didn't have to think, they didn't have to ask themselves, they just picked it up and ate it. It's just crazy how that made such a small, that small change made a huge difference. Now, like I say, obviously if you can keep them out of the house, fantastic. Now, obviously most people can't do that for whatever reason, but you just have to make them as hard as possible for you to access them. Okay, and I'll give you a great personal example, because I think it's always great to give personal examples as well. In my life, because I, as like everybody, struggle with snacking. So me personally, don't keep them in the house. the only thing I can snack on in my house is grapes, which, you know, is not as bad as snacking on crisps, etc., etc. And I have a shop that is a minute walk away, 1 minute. And I have never thought when I have sort of the urge to get a snack that I'll walk down there. It's a minute away, but I never do it. Now, when I go around my parents, they do have some snacks. And when I go there, I eat. And I eat a lot, okay? And just for me, personally, obviously I have identified that convenience is a factor for me, so I don't keep them in the house. And even a small barrier like walking 1 minute is enough for me to say, you know what, don't really want it. That simple. And like I say, it's crazy just how these small little changes in your environment don't seem like they might not make a difference, but trust me, they do. So just find ways of making them as hard as possible for you to get to them. Okay, so there's a quick one for tonight, guys. Thanks for tuning in. If you did get some value from it, please feel free to like, comment and share, because I do always appreciate it. Have a great evening, and I shall see you on the next video.